Hey everybody, it's Dan Morey with Staffing Monthly, the industry's only digital magazine that focuses on recruiting, marketing, sales, and leadership topics where I go out and I find the thought leaders and we bring actionable insights to you to help you level up and grow your staffing agency. And as you know, we've been putting a heavy focus on talent pipelines and unique value proposition. And I know that sales is still the hardest challenge we have in this industry right now. And it's only going to get harder for the foreseeable future. And the main reason it's so challenging is because over the past 10 years, maybe longer, but definitely the last 10 years, staffing agencies have sort of lost their way with crafting a really good, unique value proposition. And if you've experienced what I've seen over the last decade, you've seen this sort of hyper commoditization, this over competitiveness on pricing, this sort of race to the bottom. And it's getting harder where actually our margins are getting compressed and our clients are wanting more from us for less money. And that is because they do not see a unique value that we're providing to them. There's sort of a trust recession going on. And the only way to get that back is to get to your core root of knowing what your unique value proposition is so you can properly communicate that to the client. This will help your sales. It will help your margins. But today's not a sales talk. We're going to talk about the UVP and most importantly, talent pipeline. How do you get the talent you need into your pipeline so you can deliver the right ones on time to your clients that they're willing to pay for? And that is the challenge. So that's why we're living there. And one of the key strategies we're talking about today is job seeker engagement. Okay. Job seeker engagement. How do you recruit job seekers in corporate roles, non-corporate roles? And we're going to focus on two generations. And I'll talk about this and then I'll bring our guests on. The two biggest generations that make up the workforce right now combined is Gen Z and Millennials, right? This is the group that we've all struggled to really crack about how to recruit them. And there's a specific reason why that we're going to teach you today. And I actually have Ryan Foote and Pete Sanidas from JobGet here to talk about exactly what the challenges are and a better way to recruit these people. So they come with a lot of experience. They've both been in recruiting for decades. I'm not going to read their full bios. You can see it on screen here, but they've been doing this a long time and they've been working with JobGet and they have all of the data that will show you how to recruit Gen Z, how to recruit millennials, and how to target it towards corporate versus non-corporate roles. So before we get into it, Pete, Ryan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So guys, everyone, like the way that boomers found jobs, the way that Gen X found jobs, it was a different. And the way that millennials and Gen Zs want to find jobs is very different. So before we get into the nuanced detail, can you just break down really quickly, why do Gen Z and millennials want to do it differently?
I think we can get outside of the world of job seeker specific and employment related internet activity and just talk about the differences in digital perspective. And folks like myself, who classified as a Zennial, born in 1980, firm grasp of what pre-digital life was like. Remember having dial-up internet at home versus the immediate gratification of today. And when we really think about the difference in internet usage behavior by generational shift, it really comes down to what kind of world have you grown up in? And when we talk about millennials and Gen Z, what we affectionately kind of refer to as the TikTok generation, because it's so applicable to how they view the internet. They've grown up with the internet. Most of them have lived most of their adult life with one of these in their hands.
Yeah.
So their expectations around information being put in front of them, if not just readily accessible, but put in front of them based upon the algorithm, it completely changes the dynamic of those of us that were enamored with the idea that instead of going to the Encyclopedia Britannica, we could go to the World Wide Web and actually search for anything we wanted. That was the beginning of our internet journey or our digital journey, whereas they have been getting pushed relevant content since they were able to understand what the content even was, whether that was Netflix, Amazon, or the world of jobs.
So I agree with that, Pete, but let me ask this. I feel like there's a difference between Gen Z and millennials. And I feel like you touched on it a little bit, but you sort of lumped them together. So like what is a nuanced difference between the way Gen Z might want to look for a job and millennials today?
Yeah, again, I think there's absolutely a difference there where Gen's millennials, again, coming of age into the workforce, primarily Great Recession time period. Um, kind of the 2.0 of the world of careers online. Again, I was
Yeah.
part of 1.0 with Monster and Career Builder and Hot Jobs being the only
Hot
option
jobs.
to
Wow.
2.0, right? Being the aggregators and where Ryan intersected with this space from the digital side with Indeed and Zip and then obviously social with LinkedIn. That's kind of the 2.0. Those were again more search first oriented. The job seeker themselves searches for what they want. They go out and find what they want and hope to intersect with it. Just the same way, again, go to Google, go to search, find what you want, as opposed to the world of the algorithm. And Gen Z, they live off of the algorithm. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, usage behavior does not start with I'm looking for this right now. Most usage behavior starts with I'm going to my feed. My feed is pushing me content that's based upon my interests, behaviors, intent, and what the social graph around me, people who are like me, also engage with. And that's what pushes all the content. And before you know it, you've purchased something that you didn't even know you had an interest in, and it became your favorite hobby off of TikTok Shop or whatever it might be. And again, that same exact experience of using the internet and consuming applies to the world of how they intersect with jobs. You also bring in a different aspect that's part of the kind of continuum of generational shift, which is our generation, my generation, older generations, you work to live type mentality, your identity tied up in your career, as opposed to younger generations absolutely are about the life or the instead of the work life balance, the life work balance, and they're thinking life first, work around it. How do I bring work into life? you know uh, 5, 6, 10 years ago, that was about the gig economy and thinking, oh, everyone's going to be a gig. Well, no, it's a little bit different than that,
Yeah.
but it's still the nuance of my work life is going to balance my personal life as opposed to the other way around, which is quite frankly healthier.
So I agree with you there. And I try to do the same thing. I try to say, hey, and I had a coworker years and years and years ago when I was just starting out in work, and I heard him say this thing that was I loved it. It was super, I mean, super catchy, but he basically was just like, I work to live, I don't live to work. I'm like, man, that's actually a really just simple perspective, and I think it hits that. But it makes me wonder, you hit a really good point that overlaps with a session that I just trained on job board strategy, is it's about the algorithm. And when you're thinking about job boards, when we're recruiters and we want to post ads and we want to get as much reach as possible, we don't have to please the job seeker or the candidate. We have to please the algorithm with Indeed or Monster or Career Builder. Is Hot Jobs even still a thing? Like, you said that and I laughed, but are they still around? I don't
They
even
got
know.
they got acquired by Monster
Ah, that's right.
14 years ago,
That's
maybe.
right. I knew there was some sort of roll up. And then now Monster and Career Builder, I think they just combined, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they were the Titans and now they're just like it's crazy. So, but you have to please the algorithm. Like, you have to know what keywords am I putting in there. Yeah, there's certain ratios, kind of the 2-to-1 deal for like the keywords you want and how much you put them into the body. You can't use the meta stuffing anymore. Like, there's a certain formula for really crafting a good job ad to please the algorithm Indeed, or sorry, the Indeed or job board algorithm. However, social media algorithms don't operate the same way. So I got two questions here that I really want to explore with you that are fascinating. So how does a recruiter that's used to trying to please the job board algorithm, how do they actually change their mindset, their process or whatever to actually not just do the same thing over on social media that has a different algorithm? And then here's the inverse of it. And I'm sorry, I usually don't like throwing two questions, but I want to live here. Where does the job seeker that's used to just being at the bay of the social media algorithm, they're not going to be connecting with the job boards the way, because they're more used to connecting with social media. So like they probably don't like connecting with the job boards that way because the
Oh,
algorithm they're used to is different. Am I making sense?
Well, we'll start with the last part.
Okay,
Because
all
what
right.
you just highlighted there is the giant disconnect between what is happening, whether it's in the world of staffing or in the world of direct employers, and the labor market when it comes to these digital natives of the younger generations. And that is, let's just start with job board. You ask anybody to think about a job board, close their eyes and think of a job board. What they likely see is a blank page with a box that says enter a job title or keyword, and a second box that's pre-populated with their zip code and says, I'm going to show you everything within 20 miles that matches
Oof.
that keyword or that job title. That's what we think of.
Yeah, yeah. And an Indeed
You know what
logo.
the number one search in that environment is? Blank. And it has been for a long time.
Really? So what do you mean? What do you
Really.
mean by that? What do you mean blank? You mean they're
The
just hitting the
most
radius and
popular search in that type of experience is not actually entering in something. It's saying the job seeker behavior, and it's been this way for a long time, is I have no idea whether you're trying to call your role a software ninja or a software developer or an eng2 or
or a
anything in
sandwich
between.
artist? Remember sandwich artist? That was such a clever
Exactly.
name, and it's like,
Exactly.
what the hell is
That was
that?
my first job.
So
I love
I don't know
it. Is
how
that
I
on your
found
resume? Can
it.
I look at your LinkedIn? Does it say
It
sandwich?
is not on my resume. Should
So,
add it.
but it's
but
like,
yeah,
so that's a good point. Okay, so they hit blank and they just say, show me all the jobs in
show
my
me
area.
everything. Show me everything. So again, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about an app-based algorithm, a social-based algorithm, or a traditional web-based algorithm. When that's the starting point, there's going to be a big disconnect between the
Holy
talent
cow.
and what gets served to them.
So let me just stop there for a second because I want to keep living here, but I think you just pointed something out. And truthfully, I didn't know that the blank was I thought you were going to tell me a text string. I didn't realize blank was the number one search. So this tells me that it's just going to give all of the jobs that are within the radius that they picked, right? And if that happens, they have to start scrolling through page after page after page. And as we know, if you're after page one of Google, which because now you're talking about basically a Google search result, if you're after page one, you don't get found. So you have to be your job, if you're recruiting on job boards, your job has to be really on page one within that geography to really get the attention of that person. Is that right or am I off base there?
Or
Or
if said job board experience made it really easy to apply to every job,
oh yeah, I hate
qualification be
that.
darned. What happens is we have a massive volume of applicants into jobs that we've paid for on a pay for performance basis that have very limited relevancy to what they're mass applying for.
And recruiters find that. Recruiters know they have to sort through all of those things. And it's like, man, why are they even applying to this job? Why are they even applying to this job? And it's because it was so easy for them, which is really that sidebar. And then we'll get back to your answer is that becomes our UVP. Hey, you know what? We'll sort through all of those resumes to save you time so you don't have to do it. We'll go find the needles in your proverbial job board haystack so you don't have to do it. And it's really, it goes upstream because blank is the number one search. And the job board made it super easy. They removed the friction to apply to everything, and then they charge you for every single application.
You got it. You got it. So
Sorry to interrupt, man. Keep going. This is great.
That's just the broken experience that's now 15 to 20 years old. Like that's not new.
Yeah.
And that's not new to generations, but certainly younger generations that are expecting quality results when they search for things, or at least some level of intelligence based upon how they've interacted with that site in the past, are kind of being led down a different experience. And I'll hop back into then like the algorithm.
Yeah.
You start to think about social, and Dan, you can be guilty here because I'm guilty here. But do you use TikTok? Have you ever used TikTok in your personal life?
So there's two questions there. Have I ever used it? Yes. People have sent me videos. I have watched those videos. Do I use TikTok? I do not use.
Okay.
In fact, there's truthfully told, there's really only one social media that I technically two, but LinkedIn is my social media that I use. I will say YouTube, but YouTube is half social media, half search engine. So,
Yeah.
but so to answer, I'm like not a good case study.
So
I don't.
that's all right. Those that are watching this, who would raise their hand, maybe in guilty fashion, would tell you that if they remember this, that when they first create their TikTok account, you don't create a TikTok account and just end up with a search bar. You create a TikTok account, and the very first thing it does is say, "Hey, give us a little bit about your interests," and they present some general interest areas. And hey, it looks like based upon GeoIP that you're in this location. What is that right? And kind of where else might you be? And you go through this like 30-second super light discovery process to build a little bit of a profile of who you are as an individual and what you're interested in, and kind of what your macro demographics might be like, so they can start to say, okay, that's the foundation for your unique experience. And then from there, the content just starts flowing. And again, based upon how much you engage with the content, how long you let it play, whether it repeats, whether you share it, all then factors into what content comes next. And over time, that algorithm is saying, we really know Dan and his interests better than Dan would if we just said, hey, search for what you're looking for, like the YouTuber experience. And YouTube does this now too, right? They're auto-suggesting.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So where most people will watch TikTok, I'm on, like, I'll do YouTube Shorts every once in a while, you know? So like, that's my version of TikTok.
Exactly. And whether it's Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or Snapchat, you name it, all of these for yous are using some element of that.
Yeah.
And so when you get accustomed to consuming content that way, particularly the way these younger generations do. By the way, I said they don't start with search, but the number one search engine for Gen Z is actually TikTok, not Google. Let that sit in your head for a second. So, right? So when we
which means is if the recruiters don't have sort of a recruiting brand account on TikTok using TikTok to recruit, or corporations don't have a TikTok with a recruiting focus, they're going to be missing a huge segment there. Is that what you're pointing out, Pete?
I think so. That's one of the traps that I think we see people falling into, is like suddenly like, oh, I need to go be on TikTok. And the reality is that job seekers aren't necessarily looking for employment on TikTok. But TikTok, as an example, or any of the other social media platforms, have created this concept for them that they expect the right content to come to them without having to work for it. So again, back to where I was with, I won't say their name, but the traditional job board experience where most of the money's going to advertise a blank search and the right content isn't coming to me, versus the way I spend, some people 80, 90% of their time online, with this being the only means of internet access, where everything's getting pushed and it's the right stuff. So we talk about how to optimize job performance for that world. The first thing is just be real. There's sandwich artist, okay, that's cute and nice, but that's not real to how we actually engage. And I think one of the things about user-generated content that's a big part of this entire social change in demographics is people gravitate towards because it's authentic. It's real. Call the job, a team member at that sub location, not a sandwich artist, right? Call it what it is. Be real about the compensation. Be real and very specific about the location. 20-mile radius around a zip code, that might be fine in rural Kansas. That does you no good in any major metropolitan area.
I was thinking Manhattan for that. I'm like, man, you're going to get jobs out in like Hoboken. You know
what matters? The 10-block radius that I go on every day to drop my kid off at school or to take care of my parents or do my continuing education. So when you get pinpoint accuracy, when you're using things like app-based talent marketplaces like JobGet, is you can start to get pinpoint accuracy in what gets pushed in front of somebody when they've enabled geolocation on said provider, right? Okay. So be real in the job content. Put what matters most and none of the fluff.
What do you mean?
Interpersonal skills as a requirement, please, right? These things that just kind of look like they've been on the boilerplate for 20 years, get rid of them. They're noise. They don't help the algorithm. But be real about what the job is and what job seekers care about most. In the non-corporate world, it's compensation. It's realistic perspective on what skills are actually required so that what skills are transferable. And in a world of AI skills matching, where there's 75% or 70+% skills overlap in most of these kind of hourly roles, that's important. And then location, very specific location. You stick to those basics and the algorithms will work well.
Did you say shift? You said shift like hours? Because I feel like that's important for non-corporate.
Absolutely. Yes. Shift, hours, compensation, specific location.
So So that's on the non-corporate, and that's going to be very different. So if you're recruiting corporate people, what's the essential non-fluff stuff that we're supposed to be putting there to get more of the corporate Gen Z millennial job seeker target to be interested in us and engage with us?
Yeah. So first of all, here at JobGet, we focus on what we call the everyday job seeker. So we are pretty maniacal about what happens with frontline and hourly workers. Even into those that have advanced degrees in healthcare, such as nurses and LPNs, drivers, transportation, and that what would typically be considered the hourly space. So most of my last couple of years here of perspective is entirely focused within that realm as we think about generational shift. But I spent close to a decade bringing the first recruitment marketing platform to enterprise, the world of enterprise, in the form of telemetry, and led all revenue at JobVite prior. So I've worked with a lot of corporate roles and professional roles throughout the transition of the last couple of decades. I think when it comes to those roles, it's the same thing. People are looking for authenticity. People are looking for not the corporate speak. And so when you're talking about pipelining and truly sourcing for those corporate roles as opposed to purely advertising for those corporate roles, be very real. Younger generations can smell through the corporate fluff and the corporate positioning better than any older, and they kind of expect it, and they have an allergic reaction to it. So be real. If there's some hairy aspects to this role, they are what they are. People can handle the reality. Don't brush over it. Be real about it.
So there is one topic I want to cover, and then I do want to kind of close with the what is JobGet. That's the elephant in the room. We haven't got to that yet, and because I wanted to build up to this is kind of covering these insights. So I'm a data guy. If you've seen any of my content, you know that like I talk about the metrics that matter all the time through the staffing process, and knowing that if you look at the data, it will tell you what's working, what's not working, so you can focus your efforts on the stuff that is working the most, or maybe focus your efforts on correcting what's not working. So when we're thinking about like traffic, right, we got to get more job seekers paying attention to us. The more awareness we can create, the more traffic we can generate to get people into our talent pipelines, whether we direct them through job boards or referrals or social recruiting platforms, whatever it might be. When you're thinking about that, Pete, what are the metrics that you're looking at, or that you would tell a staffing agency to look at to make sure they got healthy traffic and their conversions are good?
Yeah. Again, I'd be looking at the entire funnel to your point.
Yeah.
I actually look at the world a little bit differently, having led go-to-market and built go-to-market functions on the B2B side, while then trying to apply those same concepts to the world of scaled recruiting for the last 15 years of my career. I would say actually start at the bottom of the funnel and work your way up rather than being focused at the volume at the top, because that's purely a misnomer. And that's the trap that most advertising partners are going to want you to focus on. Let's focus at CPA. Let's focus at volume. If I give you 1,000 applicants, but only 1% are qualified and only half of them engage with you, and your placement rate of those that engage with you is 5%, that's much worse than giving you 5 applicants where all 5 are qualified, where all 5 responded to your first outreach, and where you placed 50% of them.
Okay,
right?
I'm gonna push back on you here for a second, Pete, because that sounds amazing, right? That really would be like the holy grail, the coup d'etat, whatever you want to call it, but it's always been a numbers game. It's always been like you look at those conversions. It's like, hey,
this is my jaded perspective, but
I want to hear it. Yeah, I want to hear this.
Ryan and I interact with staffing professionals and leadership and performance marketing managers on a daily basis in some of the largest environments. The reality is very few are accurately tracking from the perspective of placement all the way back up to the top of the funnel, because the conversation gets so fixated on the volume, and there's all the technical gotchas, there's all the change management gotchas, there's all the human behavior of accurately tracking gotchas that are a big lift, that there aren't all that many organizations that have confidence of their true source of that placement every time they make it. And it's really difficult for folks to start there. That's a big lift. And so they tend to skew back up to the top and say it is a volume game. And it's absolutely going to be a volume game if you don't have confidence in the original source by the time you get down to the per placement perspective. And that's the reality that we tend to see even here in 2025.
So what you're saying is that you are, if you focus on refinement at the bottom of the funnel and work your way back, and I'm going to make an assumption on the question at each toll gate is you're like, okay, how did we get this result? And then you look one step back, like, okay, these things had to happen. And how do we get this result? And then these things, and that you work your way back to it. So what you're saying is if you get really refined on that piece, it doesn't necessarily have to be as big of a volume game at the top of the funnel. And then you'll have technically less spend at the top and less resource consumption at the top and throughout the funnel. Am I picking up what you're laying down?
1,000%. Your resource requirements to work through the volume to do all of those things can diminish greatly, or you can reapply the resources that you have, whether that's the man hours or the dollars going into media or sourcing, to dramatically impact your actual profitability. But again, I think organizations need to be real with themselves. Do we have confidence that the source of placement data that we have today is accurate? And when push comes to shove, we tend to see that not be something that organizations have a great deal of confidence in. If they do have confidence in, are they truly making their decisions, higher up in the funnel based upon that data? Or are they maintaining the status quo because they still don't totally have confidence in that placement data? And are they willing as an organization to make the commitments? Because it's totally technologically possible today to refine that to where there's a high degree of confidence in that bottom of funnel data to then use that to drive true database decisions throughout the entire strategy and process.
Let me ask one quick question on it because I want to put a pin in that and then get to the question of what JobGet actually is. You say it's absolutely possible, technologically possible. Are you confident enough in how absolutely possible that is that if we had you back, that we could only focus on that and you could actually like teach how somebody would create that or be able to do that?
Absolutely. And it's not from a specific technology perspective
Sure.
in terms of the teaching. It's more of the guiding principles, the pillars, if you will,
Right.
and the commitments that have to be made in order to do that.
So you can teach the framework of how a leader or how somebody would actually create that sort of precision or higher level of confidence to make sure their pipelines were managing more efficiently, and then they can apply whatever respective technologies to that because there's a lot of options. So okay,
Yeah.
so if that's the case, I'm going to put a pin in that one right there. I'm going to invite you back because I'd like to have that's a whole other deeper conversation that I want to focus on today. So I'm going to invite you back. So if you're watching this, keep an eye out for that. We're going to have Pete back to talk about this, but let me ask this question because right now we've only mentioned JobGet a couple of times. We talked about your guys' expertise. JobGet does it differently. You are essentially using the principles and I'm assuming algorithms of social media in your recruitment marketing. So you're building a platform or have a platform that engages with these Gen Z and millennial job seekers in a way that's more native to them based on the world that they've come up in. And that's just my very basic understanding. Do I understand that right? Or what is JobGet?
You understand it correctly. So what is JobGet? I'll kind of give you the 6 years in a very abbreviated fashion.
Okay.
JobGet founded in 2019 to be an app-based social job board for the modern internet usage generations, the things we've been talking about here. So core principles bring those elements that make the most popular apps work so well for these younger generations and fit the way they want to use the internet to the world of the talent marketplace. So there's kind of 5 core elements there that apply to, again, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah.
The first one, personalization, the For You page. We've beat that one to death here already today, but the algorithm that pushes the right content in front of the right people in a one-to-one basis based upon their past interactions, intents, behaviors, and social network. Number 2, instant and interactive. Interactive things like, hey, when jobs get pushed to a job seeker through a push notification and they come to that daily brief, swipe left, swipe right, just like they do in their personal life to express interest, to refine that algorithm. Instant gratification. Again, this is a set of generations that have been able to find anything and have it delivered in the same day for the majority of their life. They're looking for that level of instant gratification. If you're using a process that is 45-minute apply, wait 7 or 8 days, hoping that you didn't make it in, that you get through the black hole of the ATS, and a long, prolonged process that just doesn't fit the generational expectation of conversion. So making it really easy to apply, go through screening, actually even schedule interviews. And we even are supporting some individuals applying and scheduling interview in the same day and starting the very next day, even in large enterprise organizations. The
Wow.
third element, social. Again, tap into their social network because that's how they live their life. 75% of our users share their interactions with us and their social networks with us on the contacts on this thing.
Yeah.
The big difference between web and app, the accessibility, the always accessible user. So being able to do things like push notifications versus email. Email is about as relevant as the postal mail for a lot of folks in these generations.
Yeah.
Calls, texts, a little bit better. Push notifications is how they run their life. Geolocation, I hit on it earlier, but knowing pinpoint where that person's life resides and being able to match that in terms of the content that you're pushing in front of them, as opposed to a GeoIP 20-mile radius kind of default of a web-based experience, really big.
Yeah.
And then monetization. All of these social platforms allow their users to monetize their use of the platform. And that's content creators. Now, a very small portion of these social platforms have content creators that are doing so.
Yeah.
But that's really one of the advantages. And so we even bring in an element of monetization in which our job seekers can interact with third-party surveys, with app testing and games to actually monetize their experience with us, which keeps them coming back, particularly in that everyday job seeker, those folks that need a job right now. They're not stepping back when they need a new job and assessing their career goals. They need income now. And so whether that's a gig opportunity, a side hustle, a new full-time job, or even the chance to make $5 to $10 an hour, playing some games or filling out some surveys, we give them that opportunity within the platform. Now, bigger picture, who we are today. We are a collection of digital properties. We've been out acquiring other organizations that have really good synergy to us in terms of these principles and the audiences we serve. Some notables there: Snagajob, the longtime leader within the hourly hiring space, Seasoned here, which focuses within the
You guys bought
restaurant
Sanidas?
space.
That was
We
you?
did. We did. So those are just a couple. We've made more than a handful of acquisitions here in the last 2 years, and really cementing our space here as having access to over 100 million everyday job seekers, bringing these principles to them and making that match happen between the job seeker and the employer in a way that's natural for both and kind of gets out of the old world dichotomies.
Man, so I've got one last question. This is for my own organization. So when I speak and I teach, I talk about the 4 pillars of UVP, which is job boards, because that's the very active candidate flow. Then we've got talent mapping, which is a kind of an old fundamental recruiting technique with technological and automation built into it that I teach. Employee referrals, obviously, who knows more people. And then we talk about, traffic, website traffic, and actually how are you using recruitment marketing to drive traffic to your website? How are you using retargeting and remarketing to bring people back to apply to your jobs? Because the number of first-time visitors applying is very, very low. However, the number of second-time visitors applying is very, very high. So if you want to optimize, you got to get them to come back. So I have a question because I'm a little bit confused about where I would put JobGet in my box. Is JobGet, does it fit in sort of the job board pipeline where you're targeting? So you're going to utilize JobGet alongside maybe your Indeed strategy, your career builder strategy, your ZipRecruiter strategy, and you're going to have that funneling people there? Or is there a traffic play that also could support traffic to your website, traffic to your referral program? Like, where, like, how do these things interact if I'm using JobGet?
Ryan?
Here's your
Yeah,
20%, man.
I think it's a good question. I would say it's a combination between the job board and the traffic aspect. So certainly, we are taking market share every day from the Indeeds, the Zips, the CB Monsters. But also, we put a lot of emphasis on automation in terms of sending traffic efficiently and effectively. And the best way to do that is generally utilizing the jobs that are existing on the client's website. And so I think getting that branding in front of candidates and building that efficiency in terms of, hey, I close a job on my website, it's not going to be advertised anymore. I'm not going to be spending any more money on it. I hear all the time people manually trying to adjust jobs on Indeed, adjust jobs on ZipRecruiter because they've increased their prices, they've decreased the number of slots available to them.
Yeah.
They're trying to play the algorithms, whereas we don't have those restrictions and business model, quite frankly. And so if we have the ability to direct that traffic to the jobs on their website efficiently, what jobs are open, what jobs are most important, and there's a lot of flexibility with how we campaign. That's our preference because that gets job seekers into their existing process, nothing else for their recruiters to learn or do, and it builds that branding to your point. So I think we can play in either. I think our preference is to automate and send the traffic directly to the website and the jobs that exist there.
So that's how I'm in my graphic. I'm envisioning almost you guys enveloping job board and website traffic, which is a big lift because most people struggle with the website traffic piece because we're not inherent marketers. Let me ask one last question because I'm still thinking about this other pillar about the monetization piece that you mentioned, Pete, is referrals. So if you got a platform out there like Staffing Referrals, which is an automated referral program that helps candidates, job seekers make referral income based on referring their candidates, is there a way to help monetize and bring maybe a company's employee referral program into the monetization aspect of JobGet? Like, is that possible? Could it be on the roadmap? Like,
Not today, but I might take your tip there and put it into our product leadership's perspective. Yes, I mean employer referrals and just network referrals continue to be essentially the number one external source of hire.
yeah,
Again, over time, the ability to track that and effectively campaign to that with technology. Again, whether it's on the direct side with tools like Aaron or previously Rollpoint, absolutely the leading spot, but not part of our ecosystem today.
I think you and David Fowell need to have a conversation and figure out how do you like work together either through API or whatever, because I feel like the talent network he has powering the referral piece at a agency by agency basis, and then your social aspect, like it, I think there's something there, So I'll connect you guys, but so Ryan, we are out of time, man. I wish I could keep going with this one. What I'm gonna shoot you an email because I actually would like to show the elements of the JobGet platform that we saw in our first call that got me so excited, but. Honestly, the stuff about the algorithm that Pete was talking about really struck a fire with me today, and I had to go there, or I would have been ruined for the weekend. So I'll get you back on. We'll show people what it actually looks like because it is really, really cool. I'll shoot you an email on that. But if anyone wants to get out in front of that and learn more about JobGet and maybe how to use it in the ways that you shared, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, go to jobget.com or connect directly with myself or Ryan on LinkedIn. And we would be happy to explore what it is you're actually trying to solve for here within this space and be able to identify some of the successes we've seen with other staffing firms.
That's cool. And I will just a quick teaser before this interview, everyone that's watching this, I actually did go look at the platform. Ryan and I, we walked through it. It is actually really cool technology, and I will bring that to you. That's my commitment to the audience. I will get you a more of a visual demo so you can actually see what got me excited. But you guys, you figured it out. Like there's a difference. We knew there was a difference with Gen Z and Millennial. We've always been saying that for years, but now we start to understand that it really is the world that they've grown up in from an algorithm standpoint. So if you feel disconnected from reaching this audience through traditional, what we consider traditional methods, job boards, but they're really 15, 20 years old, really, before that was classifieds. If you feel that disconnect, it's because those people grew up in a different world and they interact with that world differently. And we need to adjust if we're going to fill our pipelines with this group. So, Pete,
And I want to just double down on
Yeah.
that for you real quick.
Yeah.
We started this, those of us that really geek out on this stuff knew coming into this decade that we were going to go through the greatest era of generational shift in the workforce of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And then we got hit with a pandemic that completely blindsided all of us and distracted us from what was occurring.
Yeah.
We enter this year, you said at the beginning of this call, there's 18 million more Gen Z and millennials in the workforce than all the other generations combined.
Yeah.
It's about 60%. The reality is that if you're not adapting to those changes with your strategy, by the end of this decade, they're going to be over 80% of the workforce. This is the only workforce in terms of what you're attracting within the next 5 years.
Facts.
So it's just facts. And if you haven't started changing, it's not too late, but you better have it within your top priorities list, or else you're going to continue to feel what you're feeling today, but only worse.
Well said. Well said. We'll land the plane there. We'll get this all out for you guys. Thank you so much for your time and your insights with Staffing Monthly. I'm grateful for it. We'll get you back on to have that more in-depth conversation. Pete and Ryan, I'll schedule a time to actually just only demo so we can actually show the technology to people that want to take a look at it. But if you want to see it beforehand, reach out to these guys directly.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.